Welcome, everyone. This is Bridles, and you're listening to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at latest news in LOTRO and here at LOTRO Players. And this week we have with us Sanswinda
Hello.
and Krister.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. And we have our obligatory update of the week. We seem to be getting one of these every single week. And in this week's update, we have first of all 4 classes. The Runekeeper, the Rune Sign of Winter's Rage will now be increased by the Word of Power ranged healing extension tracery. And also for items, there are now new non-legendary item bridles that are available with stats scaled appropriately across level bands pertinent to mounted combat content.
Does this mean that we don't have any at like level 130 or 140?
And that is exactly what that means. They have they have bridles for level. What level do we get those war seeds at? 75, right? Yes. They have them for 75, 85, 95, and 100. So that's the range in which you'll be able to get them, and it's possible that there could be one that's a little bit lower than 75 if it's the one that you get as a quest reward. The quest reward one I've no longer eligible to get on the character that was checking this out, so therefore I didn't see what level the one that was a quest reward. It's possible that the quest reward one might be a level 71, just so that you'll be able to use it when you complete the quest, because I think 70 is the minimum level you can get a war steed, Sans.
I was gonna say 65, but I don't actually know right off the top of my head.
Yeah, because I think
just know I want one at level 5, and so I just keep checking back until I can get one.
Yes. Anyway, I think that the first one is probably going to be at minimum level, the one that you get for the quest reward. But the ones that are at the Eastern Miscellany Quartermaster, which of course you can find at various Rohan hubs, those are at 75, 85, 95, and 100. So those are the levels that you could get them in. So you can now use those, and the stats go up pretty decently, it looks like, and they're probably in there. But of course, as Sans pointed out, they don't have a 1 level version 131, so you're not going to go too far past on there. So you won't be able to have a super, super, super powerful bridle in there. And these new bridles can be acquired by bartering with the Eastern Miscellany Quartermaster found in various Rohan hubs, and the Tourney Field Mounted Combat Tutorial Quest reward now allows selection from the new bridles that are not legendary items instead of the old legendary item bridles. And now for the bad news. Small reputation accelerator tomes have been removed from the skirmish camp curiosities vendors. They can still be obtained from the weekly missions in Missions Bonus Character Boost package. The Lore Master Essence of the Beast now correctly states that it reduces the cooldown of Murderer Crows by 5 seconds when it procs, and fireflies in the purple firefly lantern housing item are now more visible through the glass. And as for quests and adventure areas, Iolo Brochtu and Martalo is no longer blocked behind an invisible wall, allowing the quest Bingo Boffin Full Course, of course, and other quests involving this NPC to advance. Well, okay, I guess that would be important.
Sounds good, I guess.
And the Midsummer Festival quest, A Fondness for Festivity intro, will now bestow properly regardless of prior festival participation. And I guess they wanted to make sure that this was all nice and ready because I'm sure that festival will be starting up in about a month, I guess. I guess I should go and check the community calendar to see when that is scheduled. And as for UI, the presentation of rewards in the Legendary Items reward track has been modified for readability, and new large icons have been added for most rewards. Oh yes, those are really nice looking icons that they got on there. I don't know. Have you had a chance to see them, Krister?
I haven't seen them yet. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, check out the rewards track, you 2 cents, and you can see they have these nice large items. Yes.
So if I were to stop avoiding the non-rewarding rewards track, I would hit Shift I, the old interface. LI interface thing.
The problem is I don't know what the.
Okay, I'll find it somehow. Don't worry.
Yes. Okay. Yes, because I don't recall because I have never used that one, and I think I repurposed it for something else or something like that.
Fair. I know it used to open the legendary items, but
I think the legendary items thing is still using the same thing. I think it's something else that opens up the reward track.
That is okay, Pineleaf. No worries.
Yeah. What I did is I changed the button that I used to have to open up the legendary item panel. Now opens up the reward track for me. So I still don't worry about what hotkey to use for that.
Totally fair.
All right. And the in-game LOTRO store browser has been updated for improved usability and performance. Okay.
Easier to grab our money.
I mean, that sounds nice. It was working pretty good for me before, but I'm interested to see how well it works now.
All right. And they fixed an issue with user preferences that was preventing many people from launching the 64-bit client. The 32-bit and 64 game client will now share a single user preference.ini file. That means that if you're using the 64-bit client and you notice that some of your options have suddenly changed, that is the reason. And in fact, I had to reset my sounds because my sounds were completely different than back when I was using the 32-bit client than when I was using the 64-bit clients. Now I got them to the same thing. I looked at the backup file where they put it at, and I was able to, at that time, see what they were and get the settings so that they were nice and proper. And that's it for our patch notes. Now, if you are using the Mac client, I've got some bad news, and that is that they have announced that the Mac OS client is going to be deprecated on August 25th. And that means that there will be no more official support for the Mac client at that time. Not that there was probably much support for it in the last couple of years in any case, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, support for it seems to have been very limited.
Yeah, it seems to be very, very limited because Catalina, when that came out, that sort of killed a few things relating to our OS on to support on the Mac side. So with that, let's head off onto the store sales. And Krister, what's on sale this week?
All right. Well, let's see. It's store sales are to go there and back again. So we get 30% off milestone skills, the Hurry Traveler and Returning Traveler, advanced riding traits, rally horns, and that is going on through the 2nd of June. And then the weekly coupon is a scroll of perfect crafting lore. The coupon code is Crafty Time. That almost sounds like some kind of processed cheese. Now, so that is also through June 2nd.
Then let's get into our site news, where we have another Sea Community highlight. This is Sea Community highlight number 3 by Squirrel, who is talking about the Gray Company. You remember those guys, right?
Football team, right?
The Rangers who always have extra pants.
That's a good philosophy in life. Always have an extra pair of pants. So.
Yes. He speaks of a forum thread that originally started back in 2013. So we're talking about 9 years ago, for a player interest on their own role play of the most comprehensive list of the ongoing LOTRO group storyline. Still getting some updates on the comments, and the idea here is to make sure that they record the status and what happened for each member of the Gray Company, so that we know, are they still alive? If they're not still alive, how did they die? Did they die at Pelennor? Did they die at actually, they wouldn't be dead at Helm's Deep, but did they die on the way south? Were they killed by Lou Brennan? Maybe died in Mordor at the gate after the Battle of Pelennor? So yes, so he talks about that particular little item about the fate of various rangers. Now let's head into our weekend gaming. Krister, what were you up to?
Well, on Friday night, we decided to do something a bit different, and that was to run the T1 first for Hidden Horde as opposed to doing the T2. The idea was that if we felt, flush with victory and felt good about it, that we could roll into doing T2. And by the time we did get done with the T1, and then by the time we got done with it, everybody was done for the night. So,
well, that's the disadvantage. Though, if I remember correctly, we only had 11 that night anyway.
We did, and so the idea and premise behind running the T1 or having the expectation of doing the T1 first was exactly for what happened on Friday, which was the difference between a T2 and a T1 is a T1 we can run with 11 people. A T2, we have to have a full group. So the T1 is always nice in that we can start it with a handicap, and then potentially, the T1 could be we're doing it, and maybe somebody shows up, and then we all decide to do a T2, So we at least are engaged in an activity at that point, But that was still having a lot of fun with that. I really actually enjoyed that raid just all by itself in terms of the story and the impact, and of course I think the dragon model itself is just beautiful. I think it was just really done. So we're continuing that. We'll see next week. We'll have another update on how it goes. But the bottom line is everybody's going to get their boots. So T1 Hidden Horde can at least supply that. So. And in ESO, my exploding orc continues to explode. I have been actually trying to work on my weapon switching, which you guys were talking about earlier. And what I did ultimately decide to do, because my orc is a two-handed sword, a two-hander, I cannot, at least with him, I can't live without the two-handed. I can't. The name eludes me now that I'm trying to think about it, but it's it's basically the attack where you fly to your opponent and do an overhand swing, and I just can't live without it. So what I've done is now my weapon switching is that I switch to a different two-handed sword, and I have a different set of skills that I'm running. And the idea is that I get if I'm fighting something tough, I can get them down halfway, switch, and then those skills are the ones I have an attack that increases my light and heavy attacks by 40% for the time being. Then I have the buff you can give, which increases all of your attacks by 20%. And then I can do this sweeping attack at that point that's an AoE, and if they're below 50% or 25% now, it does 400% damage. So the idea is that, get them down to halfway through all the shock and awe, and then switch over to this one, buff myself all the way up, and just do a killing blow, basically. So it's challenging, and I was having the challenges that you were speaking to as well, Piley, with the making sure I understood which line I was in. And so I eventually started using an axe in one line and the two-handed sword in the other. So it's really easy for me to tell which one I'm in. And so that's been a lot of fun. And then I've been playing a variety of games because I'm just a nerd. But Rimworld, I started playing Rimworld again. And I play the game. I usually typically start a game playing it at the default difficulty or the default whatever experience. If it's a survival crafting game, I'll do survival. So with Rimworld, I played it the desperation survival game aspect of it for quite some time, and then I figured out the editor, and then I figured out all the mods on the Steam Workshop. So now instead of these 3 crash landed victims, I'm landing with a full complement of Imperial Space Marines that can instantly build a death base and take over the entire region. So it's so my expectations with the game have changed, but the game has accommodated. So it's been kind of fun. So, Sans, what have you been up to this week?
Well, I patched LOTRO this week and was getting ready to log on, but then was reminded by a friend that the options file might have changed and I might have to reset my options, and was like, I don't have time for that. So I logged into ESO and remembered that when we had been running around with Krister the Exploding Orc, or Krister's Exploding Orc, that we had picked up an antiquity lead and it was going to expire at some point, so I should probably dig it up. So I excavated the antiquity in ESO and ended up buying another house too, because I could.
Which house?
Well, house, maybe in quotation marks. I got Cold Harbor while it was on sale because I keep thinking, that'd be nice to be able to bop in there.
Oh, nice to go to Cold Harbor?
Yeah,
yeah.
So my first introduction to the Hollow City was with nobody else there, and it was lush vegetation everywhere. You could just run around harvesting tons and tons and tons of plants, and I needed all the flowers for all the things at that point. And every so often I'm like, this would be nice to go get out of Cold Harbor. And then I remember that my characters who can get to Cold Harbor now can't see all that stuff very easily because it's all covered with NPCs and new stuff that's moved into the city as I was working on it. And so having some characters who could see it without having actually gotten there seemed
so you want
reasonable.
to give an easy way for your alts to get to Cold Harbor.
Yeah, and just spend some time harvesting flowers in the Hollow City. That's my whole plan.
Okay.
I mentioned the police are going to have a problem if they ever stop you. What are you doing here? We just want to pick flowers in Cold Harbor. You want to pick flowers in Cold Harbor? You're under arrest.
Right. That would actually be even more logical than trying to pick flowers in Cold Harbor. I mean, they can also loot any of the crates that are there too, but yeah, so that was the house that I bought, and I say house in quotation marks because it's really just a piece of land. So I'm gonna have to do some building on it. Yeah, there's no actual building on it yet.
Oh, good. That's cool. Because I haven't messed around with the housing system pretty much at all there. So you can actually have a blank piece of land and build a house on it.
It's basically just a
Ooh.
flat piece of land with some glowy vegetation that can be moved around. Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay. Cool. That's really cool. I've loved the house design in VSO. Some
Yeah,
of
you
those
should
places are
totally
amazing.
port in and just preview it.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
And definitely gonna be interesting to try to do something there though. And then I broke out of Ishgard with Cinders in Final Fantasy XIV. We finally got into Ishgard and then found out we couldn't even get out of the city. But we broke out of Ishgard, and then we went exploring, and then we got real close to Dravania, and we tried to go in, and they would not let us through the closed gate, so then we tried to break in, but that didn't work either. Stupid gates.
So, Sans, have you guys gotten any of the multi-person travel guys yet?
Yes.
Rock on. Which one did you get?
I got a draft chocobo that'll carry 2 of us.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. Okay.
And then Cinders has the fat Moogle. And
I was anticipating that one of you were going to get that one. That was my guess.
and she has a chocobo carriage. So we've got a couple options.
I love I love the flying. You just have to. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You just get up in the air.
Right?
It just feels freer.
It really does. So I'm looking forward to being able to fly through Ishgard. But more MSQ first. So, how about you, Pineleaf? How was your week?
All right, I'll begin with my Honor Warden, who quested in the Morgul Vale. I know that really lovely spot. And I did all those quests that lead to the 2 instances in there, the Deep Barrow and the Filth Well, where of course I fought that giant anglerfish of doom. So once I finished that, then I've headed over into an area that Sanswinda, I am sure, does not like, and that is, of course, Kirathungel.
Horrible, awful area.
Yeah, that's
I met
probably...
my favorite elf there, though, and discovered that he was my favorite elf, so...
Yes. Well, there is that. And, yeah, so I've also been going around reading his love letters. And my brawler was completed the Legacy of Durin storyline. And in the course of doing the Legacy of Durin storyline, we had that instance that was in the Dreadspire. And that, of course, is the instance where the brawler has the fulfillment of the mirror vision. So therefore, I was able to finally see the fulfillment of this for the brawler, and I think that was probably the best of the mirror fulfillments. Like, for example, with the hunter, all they do is they tell you, oh, this is the fulfillment of it, but even though the quest goes the same way as it does for everyone else, it's just that the...
Yeah, and it's still just as bad.
Right. So the hunter gets the voiceover of Galadriel then, but doesn't get anything extra in there. Now the burglar and the lore master, they have a slight side trip in Isengard, but all right, they find something that quickly gets confiscated or something like that. Sort of. So nothing on that. But with the brawler, they actually go into a new room and they do some brawling while there.
Nice.
Yeah. So I guess it is fitting with the burglar and the lore master that one does some burgling and one does search for lore on that. So therefore, the brawl goes in. So it's not just a voiceover; it's a little bit more than that on top of that. So
Is
that
the
was
brawler's
nice.
story, in essence, just about an angry drunk that just travels from town to town and beats people up?
I've never thought of it that way.
Of course not. You're a brawler.
Uh-huh. And in ESO, I ran the Blackwood and Clockwork City dailies because I was looking for some particular motif drops from them. And so those are the two that had the ones because I wanted to use them so that I could complete a master writ in there. So today I finally got the Apostle's Shield to drop in one of the Clockwork City dailies. That meant I was able to finally learn that motif, which meant I was finally able to complete that particular master writ in there. I was also able to get enough iridium so that I could complete one of the jeweler ones. So I am getting those master writs slowly out of my inventory and not having to worry about those anymore. I think I have 2 more master writs I need to complete. One is related to getting more iridium, and one is related to the Blackwood one. So maybe I could please be able to finish that by June 6th, because when June 6th comes out, I won't be going to Blackwood for a while because
That's right.
I'll be going to High Isle and see how crowded that place is going to be, right? Yes.
It's probably going to be insane. That's I would imagine.
It's probably going to be insane. Yes, that is going to be one little challenge with the whole thing. We currently have 14 supporters on Patreon, and if you'd like to join this illustrious rate of players and help support LOTRO players, you go to the donations page to support the Players Alliance on Patreon. Your money will be used for our podcast hosting, website hosting, and to pay for our live shows. And we have no new emails this week, but if you'd like to send us one, you can send it to podcast@loachplayers.com. You can also follow us at Twitter. The Players Alliance at Players Ally, and Loach Players at Loach Players, Arendis at Arendis, Pineleaf at Pineleaf Deals, Senswood at Senswood, Terry Edwin at Terry Edwin, Guarendis at Guarendis, Calabathian at Calabathian, and Krister at Entropy Engine 1. The Players Alliance has 2 shows on Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. We have Loach Players News, and we record DDO Players News when Drac is available. And you can see our shows, or listen to them, I should say, at lochoplayers.com/live. And that's all for tonight, and this is Pineleaf Needles reminding you to skirmish responsibly.